Okay, so take this as an update on my G5 opinions mixed with how interesting Tell Your Tale is with the whole series and what Hasbro's kind of smart plan is, but it does have its problems. So, I liked the new Make Your Mark, but I also don't like it either. Don't get me wrong, I think the episodes were great, but at the same time, I'm honestly left going, wow, I certainly hate streaming services and how they handle television. Generation 5, Make Your Mark, huge example of that. So let me start off by saying this. The toys have no factor into the breaks we have because in terms of Hasbro, they've been losing money after like I want to say 2018. And if you know me about being a DreamWorks Trolls fan, you know where I'm going with this one. But you know, in terms of Generation 5, they just release toys. They throw stuff at the wall with G5. It's like whenever they announce that they're making a toy, it's kind of almost a miracle they've managed to continue the brand. It's really wild. Though the trinkets of merchandise they drop in terms of the toys is kind of crazy. So the toys, they have zero factor. In fact, here's the wildest part about something like Bridal Woodstock. They release toys of like Pip with butterfly wings way before this special even came out. So like there's just no factoring in anything with the toys and how like they decide to put gaps in between. Heck, here's something funny. They didn't even do anything with the toys with the Winter Wish Day, which I'm not shocked considering Trolls Holiday and Harmony. But it's something to really think about here that the toys just play no factor into how the show is just made. So, in terms of Make Your Mark, this should have just been one whole season released. In fact, this is how it should have gone in terms of like, because we've been seeing that chart of what their plans are. It should have been, okay, year one, drop a new generation. Year two, drop half of Tell Your Tale in the year. Then drop Make Your Mark. All they simply had to do in terms of like having some gap room for the Tell Your Tale shorts to work, all they had to do, drop the pilot, which they did. So all you had to do, boom, drop the pilot. Right after that, on that Thursday where they drop Tell Your Tale episodes, drop the episode that's tied to that episode of Make Your Mark. After that, following week, keep in mind, notice how I've been saying weeks. All they had to do, drop all of the first season. Okay, cool. You got all of season one. After that Thursday, drop another Tell Your Tale. Then after that, Tell Your Tale just handles the rest of the show. After that, take a bit of a hiatus. Let Tell Your Tale do the rest, because here's the thing. There needs to at least be a little bit of a season, a mid-season hiatus, because they got to release Winter Wish Day. They dropped it in November, which is typically where holiday specials tend to drop. That would have been perfect. A little bit of a hiatus between season one and Winter Wish Day. After Winter Wish Day, all they had to do was have a bit of a hiatus again, drop more Tell Your Tale, and then right when the new year came around, boom, you have the rest of the Make Your Mark show. It went boom, boom, boom. You know, it kind of operated like normal television almost. And I'll say this, a lot of people would have picked up that these were not made in random burst. If you watch the pilot of Make Your Mark all the way down to the final episode of chapter 4, you will notice, hey, wait a minute, this was all in one season. The Tell Your Tale stuff was Redux. Now, what do I mean by Redux? So this is where we get into the interesting part about Generation 5 and really where the My Little Pony brand is as a whole when it comes down to animation. So around, I want to say 2020-ish, somewhere after a few months before the New Generation movie dropped, Netflix had licensing issues with Generation 4. They couldn't get the last season for a very long time, but you know who did? Hulu. At the same time, when it comes down to the movie, it kind of just goes around. That was always going to happen. But the licensing of the movie is quite interesting of how it's jumped around from random networks that are not the hub network. It's very interesting to look at. But the movie was kind of its own beast as a whole, so we're just going to ignore that, but I just wanted to bring it up for funsies. So with the show, people notice that over the course of time, Netflix has been losing seasons left and right. And they're only left with a select few seasons. I don't know what Hulu looks like. Never really checked after I got done watching the final season. So I don't know what Hulu looks like. But I can tell you this about Generation 4. Generation 4 in other regions of the world, other kind of streaming services pick it up. At the same time, one interesting thing though, places like Tubi, they like to have all of the Equestria Girls stuff because it's just easier to have compared to Generation 4. Hasbro noticed this problem and they're like, oh wow, this is a mess. No one can barely watch Generation 4 anymore properly, which some of that is definitely on them. Like they stopped doing seasonal DVDs, which was kind of weird, but that's what happened. So one interesting show that came out during a bit before of a New Generation was Strawberry Shortcake, Berry in the Big City. I always kind of confuse the title, but the new show that's currently out right now. They've been smart. The show operates exactly like Tell Your Tale, but the interesting thing is the show aired on YouTube, then it moved its way to Netflix. Now, this has happened long before. There have been web shows that just went to Netflix, and they just kind of stay there. Even with other networks, even with other, I guess you would consider them networks, but other streaming services like Tubi, for example. So what's going on with Strawberry? Well, she's airing on YouTube, she's airing on Netflix, but there are going to be CGI Netflix films coming to Netflix based on that show. And I feel like when I said that, you're probably going, 2D content on YouTube, kinda also on Netflix, CGI wait a minute, this is just Generation 5, and yes, you are correct, this is almost like Generation 5. Now, since I went through that whole spiel about how Netflix doesn't really handle Make Your Mark properly and should have just been released like normal television, you're kind of going, Make Your Mark has a lot of problems. And I think Hasbro realized this. I think they realized that Make Your Mark is great content. However, it has a its own host of problems. Netflix and how it releases it, how the amount of time it takes to actually produce a CGI episode. There's a lot of problems. So honestly, I see why they decided to shift their ideas more to Tell Your Tale than anything else. Because from what I could tell from Tell Your Tale, that we've had like a gap period of having no Tell Your Tale episodes, but once they were back, I was like, OMG, yay, it's back. It seems like the show is a lot easier to produce, but at the same time, it'll be a lot more beneficial for the brand. Now, going back to Strawberry Shortcake again, something pretty interesting happened a few months ago. I forgot where the article was, but it was announced that this version of Strawberry Shortcake is coming to Pluto TV. Now, if you don't know what Pluto TV is, it's pretty much a free streaming service. It's mostly a Viacom owned, but it's like there's like other channels where it's like, yeah, they picked up other IPs and TV shows and imports and things like that. So it's pretty interesting. And one thing that they tend to do is in terms of like their kid stations outside of the Nickelodeon ones, they do have like Canadian based networks / stations. And one of them called Cartoon Channel, they air episodes of, or not episodes, but they air the shorts of the Angry Birds show, Angry Birds tunes. I don't know why I called it show, but the Angry Birds tune shorts. And pretty much what they do is like they kind of just bundle a bunch of shorts. I want to say about, they'll air maybe about 2 or 3, go to commercial, air about 3 more, commercial, air 3 more, in credits. And if you go to, say, My Little Pony's YouTube channel, you'll notice that they do live streams of all the shorts that they have. It kind of operates like that, but it's like you're watching actual TV, but with the commercials. You can see where Tell Your Tale is, I will say this, Tell Your Tale will probably go over to places like Pluto TV at some point. Or heck, Pluto TV and maybe even Tubi. You know, it might be on 2 different streaming services, including Netflix, who has the episodes on there. So really, in the long run, Tell Your Tale is a lot more beneficial than Make Your Mark is. Tell Your Tale is forever going to be on YouTube. But in years to come, if it decides to ever pull a Strawberry Shortcake, it could also air on Pluto TV or Tubi. Don't know if it'll ever air on actual network TV here in the US, but the episodes are preserved on YouTube. You could always watch them if they ever go to, say, something like Pluto TV. Compared to Generation 4, Generation 5 has secured its bag in terms of making sure that this show is preserved and that a lot of people can watch it. Compared to Generation 4, where there's a lot of streaming service problems. The only way you would be able to watch the show is if you watch the Hub network, and a lot of people either A, don't have cable, or they just don't have the Hub network under their cable provider. So there's a lot of problems there, but I feel like Tell Your Tale, it's a smart investment compared to Make Your Mark, in my opinion. But I will say this, though. With how they handled Make Your Mark and Tell Your Tale in the early part of when they were doing it, it wasn't great. In my original video, I talked about how I don't like Opaline, but here's something funny. Because of Chapter 4 and thinking about the whole Make Your Mark season as a whole, lumped all together, I actually like Opaline. She is very much designed to be a hated character. However, Tell Your Tale made a huge grave mistake in terms of how they characterized her abusing Misty. Tell Your Tale made it out to be jokes, and it just didn't work. At the same time, the characters that do have the most arcs are Opaline and Misty. And in terms of like, once we went from a hiatus of chapter one, not chapter one, but chapter two, once we went into that hiatus, Tell Your Tale pretty much became reduxes of almost every Make Your Mark episode, but mostly the ones of Misty trying to get Sparky. On top of that, you have the redux of the Maritime Bay Day. I think I'm pronouncing that right. The thing that was part of chapter one. And then you had the Mayor stream that was introduced in Tell Your Tale before Make Your Mark. And then you had in chapter four. Yeah, chapter four. Well, chapter three, because you did have Winter Wish Day. All they really did was have winter themed episodes, so that was really about it. But for chapter four, after chapter four release and we got a new Tell Your Tale, it was pretty much of, here's what you missed on the finale. And that was it. That's all they really did. They kind of did a redux of Misty kind of becoming friends with the main five. So they did a little bit of that before Make Your Mark came out. But the reduxes in the long run, it did not help Make Your Mark. And then going into Tell Your Tale, it did not help it, especially in chapter two. It definitely hurt the reputation of what Generation 5 had. So I feel like Tell Your Tale doing reduxes, when we look at it from they're trying to preserve the show because it's just going to be locked behind Netflix. Not a lot of people are going to have Netflix. So, they did a smart thing of just having reduxed episodes of the main CGI show and just doing it in a way so in that way everyone feels involved with the brand. And it's a smart idea, but in the long run, before we got the news of them focusing more on Tell Your Tale, it didn't really plan out the best way, but they planned it in a smart way. Just there's some hiccups along the way. Anyways, this was just a quick video I wanted to do. So anyways, I'm Speed Force Spectre Volume 2 signing out.